Skip down to verse 26 as we read all the way through verse 11 of chapter 14. They came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We can't attack those people. They're stronger than we are." And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they explored. They said, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." That night, all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, "If only we had died in Egypt or in this desert! Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" And they said to each other, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, "This land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them." But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me in spite of all the miraculous signs I have performed among them?" Oh, those foolish Israelites. But wait a minute. How often has God made a promise to me and I've doubted? My vision of His unlimited power has blurred, and I can only imagine what I can think I can handle. How often has He promised to help me overcome sin? And I've persisted in living in it. If I know that He's died to set me free, but it seems so hard or scary. Scientists tell us that a dense fog covering 7 city blocks to a depth of 100 feet is composed of less than 1 glass of water. That amount of water is divided into about 60 billion tiny droplets. Yet, when those minute particles settle over a city or the countryside, they can almost block out everything from sight. Many Christians today live their lives in a fog. They allow a cup full of problems to cloud their vision and dampen their spirit. Anxiety, turmoil, and defeat strangle their thoughts. How crucial it is to walk by faith through the tough times, not by what we see around us. By magnifying the Lord through praise and worship, He shows Himself bigger than our problems. Martha Berry was a lady with a vision to help poor children, so she began a school. Well, she had no books, no building, and no money, but she had a dream. She went to Henry Ford to ask for a donation. Mr. Ford reached into his pocket and gave Martha Berry a dime. Most people would have been insulted. There he was, a multimillionaire, and all he gave was 10 cents. But Martha took that dime, bought a packet of seeds, planted a garden, raised a crop, sold it, bought more seeds. After 3 or 4 harvests, she had enough money to purchase an old building for the children. She then returned to Mr. Ford and said, "Look what your dime has done." Well, the man was so impressed that he donated $1 million to the school. You may not feel like God's given you a lot to work with, yet faith and ability as small as a mustard seed yielded to God can produce limitless results. Gary Cooper lacked vision. He turned down the leading role for one of the most famous movies of all time, Gone with the Wind. He said, "I'm just glad it'll be Clark Gable who's falling on his face and not Gary Cooper." Have you ever heard of, or better yet, eaten one of Mrs. Field's cookies? This world-renowned company was started by a regular housewife who loved to bake. Yet the response she initially received to her business plan would blur my vision. A cookie store is a bad idea, she was told. Besides, the market research reports say that people like crispy cookies, not the soft and chewy cookies like you make. She ended up making hundreds of millions of dollars. Fred Smith's vision led him to write a college paper proposing the idea of reliable overnight delivery service. He got a C on the paper, and this response from his professor: "The concept is interesting and well-formed, but in order to be better than a C, the idea must be feasible." Smith later founded Federal Express. You know, eagles are known to have vision. An eagle can see up to 5 miles and well beyond normal sight. The eagle knows where it is going and determines how it is going to get there. Other birds migrate by instinct when the climate changes, yet the eagle stays in its territory throughout the year, season after season. The eagle is dependable and will hold its place in its territory. When a storm approaches, other birds fly in fear, while the eagle is actually energized by the challenge of the storm. He catches the wind and rises above the storm. What a picture! No wonder God's Word compares us to eagles. I believe God is looking for men and women of vision who can see with their spiritual eyes and catch the wind of God's Spirit. These men and women, like the eagle, are dependable, focused, and fearless when it comes to their God-given assignments. Don't be discouraged when you've been given a vision from God and others don't seem to get it. The story is told of a pastor who thought God gave him an idea. So he presented it to the monthly elders meeting. After giving his most impassioned plea and really selling the idea to the elder board, the board voted down the pastor's proposed changes 12-1. Well, the head elder looked at the pastor and said, "Well, pastor, it looks like you've been outvoted. I guess that's all for this meeting. So will you please close in prayer?" The pastor, not wanting to give up yet on what he felt God was leading him to do, led them in prayer. As he prayed, he lifted his hands up to heaven and prayed, "Lord, I know my brothers here do not have the same vision you've given me. Please help them to see that this is not my vision, but your vision." At that exact moment, a lightning bolt with a loud clap of thunder burst in through the window in the meeting room, struck the table, split it in two, knocked all the elders to the floor. As the dust cleared, the pastor looked at the head elder and said, "So, what do you think about that?" The head elder, dusting himself off, sighed and said, "Well, I guess that's 12 votes to 2. You know, some people will never catch your vision. Caleb and Joshua were the only ones bold enough to stand on God's promises and were the only ones rewarded for their faith. God fulfilled His promises to them while the rest perished in the desert for lack of vision.